This is Stacy, and we're going to talk about workforce engagement and collective action. This is chapter 19 in your book. Collective action are activities that are undertaken by a group of people who have common interest. Parishioners, examples would be like parishioners contribute to a mission, nurses collaborate to achieve magnet designation, or delivery of high quality care. It is important that organizing a group of providers to ensure a seamless transition is one example of collective action. That something may focus on the workplace, and having a group sign a petition to support a manager is another example of collective action, as is committing to work together to cover a colleague's illness is an example of collective action. Collective action can also mean organizing for the purposes of collective bargaining. Although the purpose may differ, the desire and the skill of working together are comparable across all situations. So what is the purpose of collective participation? The main purpose is to promote the practice of professional nursing, to establish and maintain the standards of care, to allocate resources efficiently and effectively, and to create satisfaction and support in the practice environment. Shared governance is a democratic concept. It's a dynamic process, a process of shared decision making and accountability. It's a culture, and when the idea of shared governance is instituted in an organization, it requires that all change the way decisions are made. And although direct care nurses may have to assume new roles in providing input for decisions, those nurses who previously made decisions also have to change. They must now deliberately seek the impact of other staff, and so both manager and follower roles change in shared governance. Responsibility. In the past, nurses were thought to exist to follow physician orders and have very little independent action or thought. In today's organization, you are a high-performing organization that are characterized by the control of nursing practice by nursing. Nurses must exercise 4 concepts to meet the demands of today's healthcare environment, and that's responsibility, autonomy, authority, accountability. These are magnet status characteristics by the control of nursing practice by nurses, and so we'll talk about each one of these. Autonomy is freedom to make independent decisions within the scope of practice. It increases both the nurses and patients' satisfaction. It creates better patient outcomes, and it encourages the nurse to be creative and work independently. Accountability. It requires ownership. It focuses on the achievement of the certain outcome that we want, and what examples can you provide in patient education. We become accountable for our patient's outcome when we provide patient education. Authority. Knowledge that is based on clinical competency. Use your authority and professional status to advocate for patients. Nurse-physician relationships should be based on respect and trust. What are traits of a good follower? A good follower must be trustworthy, dependable, excellent communicator and listener, a team player, encourage others, a collaborator, and a questioner. Let's talk again a little bit about collective bargaining. Collective bargaining is a formal process whereby employees select a bargaining agent to represent their interest. It begins with the election of a union or group to represent the employees in a class such as registered nurses, or groups up to and including all non-management employees within an organization. Nurses have a low rate of unionization. I know that the state of Minnesota has unions. Nurses are the prime target if it is a union state for membership for growth, and the constant challenge exists to the way nurses are viewed for collective bargaining purposes. Union or at will. Few terms you should know. At will states that employees work at the will of their employer. Designation is said to favor management or the employer. Union is said to provide a greater sense of job security, and it requires equity and due process when managing employee performances, benefits, and compensation. Whistleblower protection. Whistleblowing refers to a warning issued by a current or former employee of an organization to the public about a serious wrongdoing or danger created or concealed within the organization. In 1989, the Whistleblower Protection Act protects federal workers. The law does not cover the private sector. Criteria for selecting a bargaining unit. You must have a strong commitment to nursing practice, legislation, regulation, and education. You must be a well-prepared practice, policy, and labor staff, a minimum of a bachelor's degree in nursing, a strong commitment to being well-prepared and standing up for the nursing profession. So alternative dispute resolutions has taken on new meaning in healthcare because it is a formalized process that occurs in situations where no collective bargaining agreement exists, and there are 4 common strategies. One is negotiation, may be accomplished between 2 parties in a dispute. Someone may help define clear ground rules and expected outcomes, but the way in which the individual reaches agreement is theirs to decide. In other situations, when dispute becomes evident, someone may say, I expect that you will work this out. Let me know within X hours what your decision is. Facilitation then involves the presence of a third party. This person may simply reflect what is being said and raise questions such as, does that fit with what you think? What could you live with in this situation? Or how does this strike you? This person often starts the conversation and sets the ground rules for how the process will proceed. Mediation is an informal process in which a neutral third party assists with the opposing parties to reach a voluntary negotiated resolution of a charge of discrimination. It gives the parties the opportunity to discuss the issues raised in the charge and clear up misunderstandings, determine underlying interest or concern, find areas of agreement, and ultimately incorporate those areas of agreement into resolutions. A mediator does not resolve the charge or impose a decision on the parties. Instead, the mediator helps the parties to agree on a mutually accepted resolution. It is a confidential process limited to those individuals involved. Arbitration. What is arbitration? It is a formal process whereby the person serving as the arbitrator makes a decision. The decision is binding on both parties. Because it is used at the last stage in the alternative dispute resolution process, it usually means clear distinctions and positions have prevented any conclusion about how to move forward. As a result, more difficult emotions may be associated with this process. So when you get to arbitration, then that means the arbitrator is going to make the decision for you. So an example of that is like if the union and the employer can't decide on a base wage, then they'll go through several processes. They don't get there. They'll have an arbitrator who comes in and maybe will set the base wage based on what surrounding healthcare organizations are doing, and the employer can't change that decision, nor can the employees. So the conclusion is there's a great diversity in nursing. Collective action may exist in Iowa. We don't in nursing have collective action or unions, but like I told you, they do in Minnesota. And we have to work together to reach decision processes.